Hello, everyone. DM Geezer Jim back here, continuing our series on Fiends that we're doing up here on the YouTube channel. Just kind of doing a wide and deep, long and thorough, unfortunately, never going to end series on demons. Hence, it kind of taking my time to get through it because Fiends, excuse me, it's huge. It's like I want to do everything justice, but I also have to remember that people got to listen to it. So, anywho, first few episodes we've talked about what is a fiend, what makes a Yugoloth versus a Garolith slash Demodand, what makes a devil, what makes a demon. Looked at a couple of their creation mythologies and made reference to a few of their planes. So that's kind of our next step. Is we're gonna their planes, their places of existence, creatures of the outer planes. So what I wanted to do today is a primer on the lower planes. They are considered the lower planes for no other reason that they're just displayed on the lower part of the cosmic wheel in all of our cosmologies. Obviously, the tie-in with good being upper and evil being lower, notwithstanding, these planescape scholars posit that it's not an insult; it's just a position on the wheel as it was drawn originally. Make your own judgments as you want. But the Cosmic Wheel's been around. We're going to flip over to our first edition Player's Handbook here. Where are we at? Page 122, just for grins. Ye oldie but goodie with Moloch, one of the archdevils on the cover there. Well, let's go ahead and scroll back down to our Cosmic Wheel. Appendix 4, the Known Planes of Existence. Ironically, this was the first real attempt that TSR, Gygax and Company, Dungeons and Dragons made to explain the workings of everything beyond the material plane. And it still basically holds true and consistent today, some 50 years later. So hats off to a working system. Planescape itself is based on this, and 5th edition does use the Cosmic Wheel as it's shown here. Granted, fancier pictures, and continued forward in 2024, as well as the Planescape Adventures in the Multiverse that was released for 5e. 4th edition was the difference. 3rd edition gave us multiple interpretations, so we'll kind of look at a brief look at all of that as we go. We're not going to go all of the planes. That's my Planescape series. It's its own little thing there, but in addition to the lower planes. So even here we had in first edition we had Nirvana listed as lawful neutral, Limbo as chaotic neutral, the dividing point of neutrals, and the Outlands, the plane of concordant opposition, being the neutral point. Figure 1 here, this being the resting point of the inner planes in relation to the outer planes. Don't worry about that. So from left to counterclockwise, going along the bottom part of this is a square, not a ring. But you'll see if I switch over to the other art. This is out of the 5th edition 2024 Dungeon Master's Guide. Well done art for it. Does a good job of kind of showing you the positions as well as kind of a real quick look at the physical features of each plane. I like it. Good art. So Mechanus has replaced Nirvana, Limbo still being what it is. Some of the names have changed, but the positions remain the same here. So yeah, you have Nirvana, Acheron, Nine Hells, Gehenna, Hades, Tartarus, Abyss, Pandemonium, and Limbo. On the lower planes, the only ones that have changed, Tartarus has become Carceri. Hades became the Grey Wastes for a little while. It's become Hades again. Don't worry about the upper part. We're not looking at that right now. Lower planes, dudes. So, what does all of that mean? Okay, we know that devils, Batizu, those of the lawful evil bend, come from the 9 hells, sitting here at the lawful evil position on the Great Wheel. Okay, to their left is Acheron, the plane of floating cubes, lawful neutral with evil tendencies. Gehenna sits at the 9 hells. That's considered neutral evil with lawful tendencies. Ironically, the Yugoloth consider Gehenna their home plane. However, Hades is their home. The general of Gehenna brought his race forward from Gehenna and went to Hades, the Yugoloth creation mythologies. Okay. So Yugoloths can be found on the devils can be found on the nine hells and to an extent Gehenna. They'll only be found beyond that in mass as part of the Blood War. Yugoloths kind of float around between the five, as it were, in lower planes, and we'll get to that in a second. So Hades, the Gray Waste, the neutral evil, as it were. This is where probably is the most accessible point in the lower planes, but the least often used by dungeon masters. I think because it's Hades, it's named Hades. It's very often associated with Grecian mythology, which is fair. It's fine. It's no big deal. That's where Hades kind of lives, if we're being honest. You also have Hela, Hela from Nordic mythology, who has her own lair down here. All of that. But it's called the Gray Wastes, the Plane of Hopelessness. It's primarily a battlefield between the Yugoloths, between the devils and the demons, hence it being in the middle, with Yugoloths profiting from both sides. Continuing off to the right, so we're getting to Carceri, which previously, if we look over here on first edition, is called Tartarus. It's now called Carceri. It represents the eternal prisons of the multiverse. If you've done something really, really, really bad, you don't even get to rule over a plane. You get stuck off in Carceri, and there you get to rot away forever and ever and ever. Pretty cool lore going on there. If you remember the Demodans, the Garoliths, those guys come from Carceri. That's still where they live. Remember, there used to be only like 52 of them. Now there's 10,000 of them. But at the moment one's killed, one pops in. They're just kind of an eternal part of Carceri themselves. Not seen very often elsewhere unless they're called on a specific duty or summoned. They don't just wander. And then we get over to the right, and we have the Abyss, chaotic evil in nature. This is the home of our Tanari, our demons. Once called the 666 layers of the Abyss here, and if you look over at this figure here, a lot of tie-ins with biblical terminology and all of that. The Satanic Panic, its own video, don't worry, I'll get there. Maybe not. I don't know. I think modern gamers are kind of over that. If I get some requests for it, we'll talk about it. But the Abyss began in first edition as the 666 layers of the Abyss. It was quickly redefined in Planescape and continued forward as the Infinite Abyss. Only the layers that we know of count to X, Y, or Z, and it's been extended since then. It became the primary driving force of the Elemental Chaos in 4th edition. But this is where our demons are from. Very little other than demons, maybe Slotties, and occasionally Yugoloths find their way to the Abyss. It's extremely rare that the devils themselves during the Blood War make it as far as the Abyss. That being said, the first layer is called Pezunia, the layer of 10,000 portals, the layer of the plane of closets. Ironically, it's very, very accessible to other planes and other places, but we'll get into some details on that. And last but not least, we have Pandemonium on the far right, which is chaotic neutral with evil tendencies. Not a lot of fiendish activity goes on there. It tends to be an okay, if somewhat challenging place to put adventures if you want to use the lower planes without getting people in the middle of the Blood War. That's kind of where Acheron and Pandemonium end up sitting in the lower planes debates. I want my players to play with some devils or some demons or some A, B, C, or Ds, but I don't want to stick them in the middle of the 9 hells. Just stick them down on the 14th layer of the Abyss. Use Pandemonium, use Acheron. Maybe Gehenna and Carceri can kind of fill that gap to give you access to fiendish adventures without having to plunge them too far into that lore. Ironically, the Acheron, Gehenna, Carceri, to an extent, and Pandemonium are a little bit less dense lore-wise and basic knowledge and expectations. You have a little bit more freedom as a DM to play with those as well. So, that's kind of really it. Again, at the risk of going too far along, but just for a little bit of your information, we are looking at the first edition Player's Handbook here. The 3rd edition Manual of the Planes is actually a great read as well. It gives you both the cosmic wheel and the schematic diagram, the cloud idea of the multiplanar, the multiverse, as it were, the connection between the inner planes, outer planes. Those of you that need some good diagramming, it gives you kind of an idea of finite versus self-contained versus infinite versus the different different types of planes. It's a really, we're not going to read word for word right now. It's just giving you a quick glance at things. And it talks about how you can set up an omniverse, a simple cosmology, building your own if you're like, this is some good information, but I have no expectation of myself to try to learn all of that crap to play with devils and demons. You really don't. You as a DM just kind of need to know where they came from, what do they do, how do they act in conjunction with your world, and that's really kind of it. But if you do desire a structure, and you're not into reading 5,224 books, pages worth of stuff in the Planescape universe, which you're kind of missing because they're really well written, this is a great substitution. This kind of updates Planescape cosmology into a single, well-defined place that doesn't necessarily contradict anything that came before it while clarifying it, and it's still parallel with what we're using here in 5th edition. I would definitely recommend, if you get into extraplanar stuff, add this one to your book. Add this book to your collections. Now, the Manual of the Planes, 4th edition. Why do I have this here? Because unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't want to say unfortunately, that makes me sound like a cocky old bastard. There was a switch here away from the Cosmic Wheel to what we had, the Elemental Chaos and the Astral Sea, as you see pictured here in the 4th edition Manual of the Planes. The one thing that we have to remember now is in 5th edition, we still rely on the Shadowfell and the Feywild, which are really kind of brought forth as their own entities in 4th edition. You're likely not going to have a lot of fiendish crossover in the Feywild, but there is a presence of fiends within the Shadowfell, especially the Yugoloths. They tend to kind of get around a little bit more than devils and demons, believe it or not. So even if you're a Cosmic Wheel person, it might be worth throwing this into your library, because the 4th edition Manual of the Planes does an outstanding job of giving you information about the Feywild and the Shadowfell, which is somewhat lacking. Didn't exist in any of the editions prior to here. It was called the Negative Energy Plane, and then the Plane of Fairy in 3rd edition, and a little bit in 2nd edition. And 5th edition talks about it a lot, but doesn't give us a lot of tools to play with it. So you can rely on the 4th edition Manual of the Planes to fill in that gap. So hopefully between your basic understanding of the Cosmic Wheel, combined with what we've talked about so far and the resources that you have on hand, you can start seeing how you can use devils, demons, Yugoloths, and Garruliths to a greater or lesser extent in your adventures. They can start introducing your players to a greater cosmology. Maybe even if you're not using Planescape, if you're just connecting to your own outer plane, these are the things that kind of make things bigger than what they are. Where the adventurer is killing stuff. Okay, that we killed a demon. What's a big deal about a demon? Well, they don't live here. So what's that mean? They come from somewhere else. So cults have to kind of pull those in. Oh, so that means there's a lot of things. All of a sudden. So the devils, demons, fiends of all sorts can be used to kind of expand plots and empower your bad guys and make your players take notice of things more than just another goblin or another ogre, or even another dragon. Nothing against dragons, but the challenge is making sure that you're able to connect the existence of these extraplanar beings with extraplanar locations that are consistent with what the story you're trying to tell. So, and that's what the outer planes are for. The lower planes serve a really good place. We're going to get into probably too many videos about the 9 hells and the abyss. To an extent, Gehenna, Carceri, and Hades. I really like Acheron and Gehenna personally. I enjoy them. They're really fun playgrounds. They don't carry a ton of lore in regards to fiends themselves, though. But hopefully you've enjoyed this video. A quick look at the lower planes, just a teaser, just a preview, as it were, a primer. We'll call it a primer. And then just kind of a look at a couple of the resources that we will be using as we look again into deeper views of them. But consistent presentation for 40 plus 50, I guess 50-ish years of D&D now. Reliable for you to use. Even if you're doing your own homebrew world, you can still connect it to a well-established multiverse. You can still do a lot of work in regards to making sure it works. Let the existing Cosmic Wheel work to support your universe. You can even have your own gods. You can even have your own connections to magic. Just figure out where do your deities land on the Cosmic Wheel, and that connects to the multiverse. Boom. Most of the heavy lifting is done. You get to establish your own lore in the cosmology of chaos versus law or good versus evil or anything in there. And again, always remember your fiends are the ones that kind of give you that categorical baseline of evil. These are beings of absolute evil. These are places of absolute evil. So those can be used to kind of describe things for your players if you're getting into the alignment debates as well. But I'm gonna go ahead and stop now. Thanks for hanging out. Hopefully you're enjoying the series. Likes, follows, subscribes are appreciated greatly. Hit and let me know in a comment if what you thought about things. If there are things that you want me to talk about, this is going to be as much a stream of consciousness recording and streams, I guess, for lack of a better term, as well as it will be looking at definitive articles and arts and things like that. So help keep me directed with what you guys want to talk about as well. Obviously, join me over on my Twitch stream, any of my other socials. They are sitting here on this YouTube page. If you found me, you can find those. Jump in. We're there on Tuesdays through Fridays, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time, just chatting D&D. Would love to have you along for the ride. Would love to chat with you live about any questions you have, from the most mundane to the most trippy. We love it. We love it. But thanks for your time. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Come back for more soon, and we'll see you around. Bye-bye.